wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the
Okay. Good morning, councillors. To today's meeting, just all good. Sorry. Well, welcome to today's council meeting, and firstly, there I'd like to acknowledge, make our acknowledgement to country, and I would like to begin with the acknowledgement of the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet today, the Darumbal people, and pay my respects and our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I extend this respect to our neighbouring Aboriginal peoples within our local government area, the Gangaloo Nation's people, the Barada, the Kababiara and Yeta Marara people, and I apologise if I have got my pronunciation wrong, and also acknowledging the Torres Strait Islander people whose land is in the Torres Straits but live and work on Aboriginal land. Thank you. Today, as you probably realised, our Mayor is not feeling the best and doing the right thing of isolating today. So he will be attending today's meeting. Okay. Okay. Ready. How's that? No?
No?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Does that
Is
sound...
that?
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
whoever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Okay, look, once again, just a few little technical issues there, so we'll just go back to our apologies and leave of absence, and our Mayor has done the right thing today. He's not feeling well, so he has decided there that he would go and have a test and just stay clear of us all today. So our Mayor is not here. Other than that, everybody else is in attendance, so we've still got to move the confirmation. Oh, no, with the apologies. No, that's good. Yep. Okay, next is the confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 9th of March. Moved, Councillor Smith, seconded, Councillor Latcham. If there's no business from those minutes, all those in favour? And that is carried. We've got no public forums or deputations, no...
Declarations of interest.
Oh, yes.
Number 5.
Yep, number 5, sorry. Item 5 is any interest to declare in any matters within the council agenda. Now, you can either do it now or just before the item is raised, but I've got 2 lights. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Chair. 10.3, when we're talking about disposal of council assets, I have a conflict of interest with the Victoria Park tennis court shed because my nephew is heavily involved with junior tennis, is also employed by Tennis Queensland. So I'd like to leave the room when that's discussed.
Okay,
if we could
yes.
have that one on its own or something like that. Okay.
And that's your only one. Councillor Kirkland?
Yes, so I've got a personal interest in the South Rockhampton flood levy as my husband Brett Kirkland and I lease a premises on 55 Gladstone Road, Allenstown, and the company is Dal Creek Proprietary Limited, trading as Ultratune South Rockhampton. So the interest is in items 8.14, the Rockhampton Regional Council outcomes of the Queensland Treasury Corporation Financial Performance Review and Credit Review, and items 8.16, the financial section update, and items 8.1.10, the risk registers. That's the quarterly update as at the 31st of January 2020. They all mentioned the South Rockhampton flood levy. However, as the reports are of a high level, councillors, and providing information only. They're not for decision making. I do not believe that I've got a declarable interest in those items for today. However, if there is discussion on those, on that South Rockhampton flood levy, I will declare a declarable conflict and leave the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Kirkland.
I also have a second one,
Yes.
Councillor Fisher. So that one is item 10.5. You got that one up there, Karen. I, Councillor Donna Kirkland, inform the meeting that I have a declarable conflict of interest because my son-in-law Troy Graham is a beneficiary of the business, his parents' business trading as HDE Engineering Designs and Professionals, Rockhampton City, and the property as well, located at 18 Albert Street. So that I will deal with that by leaving the room with that one.
Thank you, Councillor Kirkland. Councillor Smith, but Councillor Latcham, your light is on.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yes, 10.3, there's a mention of a property at the Rockhampton Tennis Association, which is a perceived conflict of interest, and as such, I'll leave the table on that.
Okay. So you've got that.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor. I'm saying so many mayors. I think, yeah, Councillor Latcham, you just have to describe what the conflict is. So, yeah.
I'm a trustee of a family trust that owns a tennis complex in North Rockhampton.
I was just going to say the same thing. So thank you, Councillor Latcham, with those. And if, as we're moving through the agenda, if you notice an item coming up that you suddenly realise that you do have a conflict, please put on your light or even interject before that item is dealt with. So we've addressed the public forums, deputations, addressed the presentation of petitions. Now item 8 committee reports, and then we've got the Audit and Business Improvement Committee meeting from the 11th of March 2021. Now, any discussion as to items within that report? If there is no... So we need to scroll through that.
No, you've got the agenda.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor,
So if there is no discussion, someone happy to move that the report be received? Councillor Latcham, seconded. Councillor Kirkland, all those in favour? And that's carried. Okay, we move on to... Oh, Councillor Smith.
Sorry, Mr Chair. It was just a comment that I'm pleased to see Mr Ballons has been elected as the new chair of the committee. I think it's important that we have one of the outside members as chair. It makes us fully transparent. It wasn't always that way, but we made it that way a couple of years ago.
And Ross, you had a... Oh. Thanks, Ross. Okay, we move on to the councillor delegate reports. So our first one there is with Advance Rockhampton. As the mayor is not here, he is the portfolio councillor. This report, we'll ask Greg to come to the lectern and present the report, the resolution of the e-scooters.
Morning, Acting Mayor and councillors. Always great to be standing in front of you with something exciting, that's for sure, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of those, so I hope you agree with me by the end of this conversation. But today, we've spoken about this in the past, but this is the formal side of it. E-scooters, as we've said in our past conversations, are a great opportunity for residents and visitors of our city. They promote that active lifestyle. They give an alternative to public transport. They're an economic connector. They connect our CBD to our sporting precincts, our CBD to our other shopping precincts, connects the university, keeps people out of their cars where possible. It gives a sustainability angle, outcome, again, from getting people out of their cars on some of those short trips. The proposals, the reason for going for an EOI is to look at as many options as we possibly can and then shortlist down to what we think best suits our city. So that's at that stage we would come back to council with a proposal to go out with a shortlist for a tender. That tender would then be for a trial, and that trial would then turn into, if we succeed in that trial, they succeed in that trial and we think it's something for our city, that we would then progress to a longer term contract. So while we're out to EOI, we'll continue to work on the legal and commercial framework from a tender point of view. So it gives us that breathing space there as well to make sure we've got that legal and commercial framework. Any proposal that we get back, I would not be bringing back to council anything that is not at least cost neutral to council. You know, if there is a financial benefit, even better. But the most likely outcome from early discussions are a cost neutral outcome to council. Probably the last point I'll make on the operational side of e-scooters is the data side of it and the data capture, which I think we can use to our real benefit by watching, in this case, people/scooter movement may help us with our planning, whether that be from a traffic point of view on the roads, but also from a pedestrian and walking angle as well, seeing where people are actually travelling. That may give us an outcome where we can go, well, we really should have a walk track that way as well, or near bike lanes, or whatever that might mean along the way. So from a city planning point of view, it makes sense to be able to share that data with the successful proponent when we get to that stage. So as I say, today the recommendation is to go out to an expression of interest under the Local Government Act, which would then allow us to go out to a shortlisted group of tenderers after that.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions, councillors, to this report? If there's no, Councillor Rutherford.
No, Mr Acting Mayor, it was really exciting to get this this information and to be able to work through it. You know, it's one of those things that it just means our region is stepping up and doing things similar to what the capital cities are doing, and the benefits that we talk about, you know, for those walking and bike paths as well. It was great information, and I'm happy to move.
Okay. And moved Councillor Rutherford, seconded Councillor Smith. Any further questions? No further questions. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously.
Thank you, councillors.
Our next agenda item is from Airport. Well, we've got to change these names. The Airport Committee.
It's coming up. That report next.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for that. And this is the Airport Flight Information Display Systems sole source supplier arrangements. And Peter there, or Peter's online?
No, Andrew Collins.
Andrew, sorry. Yes, we can all hear you. Would you like to talk to this report? It's very much, I think, read the report. It basically is sort of pretty much says it all.
Sorry, Councillor, you're dropping in and out.
Okay.
But thanks, Mr Chair and Councillor. So this report is in relation to Council entering into a sole source supplier arrangement. We seek Council's resolution to engage Intersystem Asia Pacific Proprietary Limited as a specialised supplier for flight information display screens at the airport in accordance with section 235A and B of the Local Government Regulation. Councillors, we currently have maintenance agreements in place with Intersystem Asia Pacific, which expires in 2023, and their software systems are currently utilised at the airport. So this request is to purchase the display screen hardware. It's required software from Intersystems to ensure interfacing and compatibility with the current software systems on site.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Wilkinson?
Thank you, Mr Chair. In principle, I absolutely support this. I understand it's specialised gear, but we had the discussion yesterday about the lift down the riverbank. Some of this gear goes back to 2006. Are we just topping up maybe 50% of the gear that we've got, or is it more than that? And is this not the time to maybe look at more later technology, or am I off the mark with that?
Andrew, do you
Well, there's 33 display screens that are being, or 18 are new, and the balance of the 15 are existing. So it's a combination of installing new and upgrading some existing display screens.
So I guess the question, Mr Chair, is there any chance that this technology too will have some redundancy issues, given that it goes back to 2006, or is it different?
I'll have to probably take that question on notice, councillors. I'm not sure if you know, Ross? Okay, we'd have to take it on notice. Andrew, you don't know?
No, I mean, obviously, we had this maintenance agreement up till 2023, so there's obviously a commitment by this firm to ensure, stock and availability. I mean, it's like any technology, I suppose, obsolescence will come into play, but I'm not over the maintenance agreement. Perhaps Marcus might be able to shed a bit more light on it.
Mr Chair, as long as the officers are confident that we're going to get spare parts and backup, that's fine.
I'm happy, Mr CEO, to actually just let this sit till later in the meeting so that Marcus can be contacted and just seek his advice if you would like. Leave of the meeting, you'd be happy to just, if we just, I can just let this...
If we just get a motion that we'll just have it lay on the table for
Yes.
later on in the meeting.
Yes.
And that we'll seek some additional advice.
Yeah, happy to move that.
Okay.
Sorry,
But,
I'll say it out loud, sorry.
yes.
Probably, council, if we're going to go that way, is you lay the matter on the table for later on in the meeting, and that further advice be provided at that time.
Okay, I'm happy with that. So, move Councillor Wickerson, seconded Councillor Latcham. All those in favour? Councillors, we'll leave that to the very last item before we go into general business. Okay, now we move to communities, portfolio councillor, Councillor Wickerson, and this is the disposal of council assets. And Alicia, yes,
I'm right here.
I was working to that. I was just acknowledging Alicia at the lectern, and then I was going to ask those councillors with conflicts to leave the meeting. Councillor Rutherford.
I'm just wondering whether we can discuss all bar the one issue that they have the conflict in, so that they can be part of the
Councillor Latcham was
report.
keen to go for the thing, but happy to ask. Yeah.
for the whole report.
Yeah, he said he was going to leave.
Because it's only one item in the whole report, so yeah.
The Victoria. We'll put a note in the minutes to say that the matter's only going to be, won't be discussing the matter that is a conflict of interest for Councillor Latcham and Councillor Smith.
Yes.
We'll just put a note in the minutes in that and then see where council goes, because I wouldn't like to put that in the recommendation quite at this point in time.
Okay. Comfortable with that, so. Ready?
You're right to go.
Okay, Alicia, we'll let you present the report.
Thank you, Mr Chair.
Just taking into consideration those conflicted.
I will do. So the principal councillors of this report is that there's a number of old buildings that are eyesores, and to fix them up and improve them is not a viable option. So if it were our own money, there's certainly you wouldn't do it. And so it just doesn't make good financial sense to improve these buildings. Or to bring them back up to scratch and bring them back up to standards. The other aspect of it is that they're there, they cost us money in terms of vandalism, and they're also that eyesore and that reputational damage as well in terms of how they look. Now, councillors, we have worked through these particular facilities, and there have been some that have been excluded based on your feedback, and so we will work through those at a later time. But The other important point is that we're in the resolution, we're talking about disposal. Okay, now that might be for removal, it might be for demolition, depending on the nature of what the viable materials are there. Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions specifically about these items.
Okay, Councillor, any questions as to Councillor Wickerson?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just checking the properties that have tenants in them, is that one of the ones in question?
Yep.
No, I mean with conflicts.
No.
No.
Sorry.
I think it's the third paragraph from the end on page 119, talking about extending the lease periods. Is it possible to extend that lease period to maybe 12 months? I'm just conscious of opinions around the table that council don't want to be aiding the eviction of these people, particularly at this time of...
Yes, yep. That's certainly been the discussion that we've had at workshop levels, that we would proceed with that extension beforehand so that they've got that. There's no... then that's then to negotiate with the new owners of those properties that would be sold. Yep.
Okay. Could that be added into the report, or just to quantify that? I'm saying it's a bit open at the moment still.
It is, but then it would also be subject to their own personal circumstances as well. They may not wish to actually extend.
So it would be offered?
It could be offered.
Yeah, okay, understood.
Just as long as you write it with some qualification like that.
Okay, no, thank you.
Probably the only other thing is just making sure the right information gets out to the community about this as well. I think there's probably some sensitivity there with when we go out to the community about sale of council property and that as well. So probably just take some caution there. I know that we've got the right people to do that. Any further questions, councillors?
If I could help the chair, if in this recommendation that the council approves the plan to dispose of nominated properties and associated structures as detailed, excluding the Victoria Tennis Club facility, and then we'll have to deal with that one separately.
Okay. Okay, if there's no further questions, or Councillor Smith?
Just a comment, Mr Chair. It was on the news this morning. I thought it came over quite well that we're considering this because some of the buildings are derelict, etc. I'm still not happy about the caretaker's residence at the Heritage Village, but I understand probably our reasoning with it.
So, no further questions. Look, I'm happy to move that this... Oh, no, I should allow the committee chair the option to move, and I'll second that.
Can't move and second.
So, yeah. So it's been moved, Councillor Wickerson, seconded by myself. All those in favour, and that's carried. Yes, so you, Councillor Rutherford, you voted? You voted in favour? Against, okay.
Yeah, sorry, councillors, as there's a matter to do with a declarable conflict of interest, we just have to record how councillors voted against the matter. So, councillors, yeah, if you can...
That's where I was leading to. So it was in favour, Councillor Fisher, Latcham, Mather, Smith, Kirkland and Wickerson, and opposed, Councillor Rutherford. And that's where I was getting to just as you were doing that, yeah. So...
Now we do the next one?
Yes, so our two councillors need to leave the meeting so that we can deal with the Victoria Park Tennis Club facility.
Effectively the same wording. The council
Yep.
approves the plan to dispose of the Victoria Park Tennis Club facility, and so that's all.
Yeah.
As in the report, that's detailed in the report.
Yeah, Victoria Park Tennis Courts shed is how it's described in the report.
Okay. So the council approves the plan to dispose of the nominated Victoria Park Tennis Club shed as detailed in the report. Councillors, any discussion on that? If no discussion, someone happy to move? Moved Councillor Wickerson, seconded Councillor Kirkland. All of those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. And once again, we've got to record all of the councillors. So that was Fisher, Mather, Kirkland, Wickerson, and Rutherford all voted in favour. And councillors can come back in. Yes? Mathers. My apologies, Grant. Yes? Hey, just add that to the list, a little the boopers as we've gone through today's meeting so far. Okay, our next one there is infrastructure, and this is the Fitzroy Basin Association, and again it's a specialised supplier approval, and we have Martin is going to present the report, or Peter?
I'm happy to do it, Peter, if you want me to, that's fine.
Hi, Peter.
No, it's Martin.
Oh, Martin, sorry.
Yes, sorry, Deputy Mayor. Councillors, I'm seeking your endorsement to nominate the Fitzroy Basin Association as a specialised supplier under the Local Government Regulation 2012. Councillors will recall back in February 2020, Council endorsed the Fitzroy Regional Resilience Strategy, which was developed by a number of councils and the Queensland Reconstruction Authority. Out of that, a group was formed called the Fitzroy Basin Working Group, made up of a number of councils operating within the Fitzroy Basin, a number of state government departments, BOM and the Fitzroy Basin Association and the QRA. As part of that, we, as a group, were looking to the Fitzroy Basin Association to assist with providing the administrative support to that group, and agreed that they would submit a number of funding applications on behalf of the Fitzroy Basin Working Group. Now, one of those submissions has been successful, so I now need to find or enter into a formal arrangement to provide council's contribution to that funding submission. Now, I'm suggesting they're a specialised supplier because generally they're basically a state and federal government recognised natural resource management body, even though they're not a government body in themselves. They've got operational coverage across the entire Fitzroy Basin, which I don't believe any other sort of natural management group have. They've got extensive knowledge of working within the basin and working with a wide range of stakeholders, government departments, private landholders, resource industry and the likes, and they've got a proven ability to deliver natural resource management focused, resilience related type programs and projects. I think Council have recently had a presentation from the Fitzroy Basin Association, so you're probably across the type of work that they're doing. We don't think it's practical to try and find a similar body who has got the same coverage as the Fitzroy Basin Association to help us with the work of the Fitzroy Basin Working Group or any particular, council program going forward that might have that natural resource management bent to it as well. So I'm seeking council's endorsement to call them a specialised supplier.
Thank you, Martin. Any questions, councillors? I think it's pretty straightforward. And I think this is actually a good outcome for council. So no questions. I'm happy to move. Seek a seconder. Councillor Smith. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next one there is item 10.5. And this is planning and... I'm reading it out and then I was going to... Sorry, I'm just doing it in a different order. Yeah, no, that's okay. So...
I'll sit on my hands for a while.
that's okay. It's always good to have that extra thing. So, Councillor Kirkland is leaving the meeting as due to a conflict. So, Councillor, what I was doing is I was actually reading the report and then I was going to ask the councillor there just so that those that are online can actually understand what the report was. So, item 10.5, request for a negotiated decision to development permit, D28-2020, for a material change of use for a service station and operational works for an advertising device, 2 freestanding signs, 1 canopy and 1 fascia sign. That's making up those 2 freestanding signs. So, I'll cross to you, Bevan, to present. Sure.
Good morning, councillors. Some of you may have already seen this application a few months ago. So it's D28-2020, and the reason it's brought to you today is the applicant negotiated one of the conditions that was approved. So that was 19.2. So that condition required the developer to supply and install block-out blinds or block-out curtains to the front rooms of the external premises of 33 Kent Street. So that's that property there. So there was some concerns about lighting issues with trucks leaving the site. So that current condition requires that to be installed for them to comply with that condition. The negotiated change allows some flexibility for compliance. So if that owner decides they don't want it, then the applicant isn't impacted by that decision. Alternatively, if they do want it, then they have to undertake that work. So just provide some flexibility for compliance because it's kind of out of their hands in terms of complying with that condition. So the applicant's request to amend the condition is considered reasonable and is therefore recommended for approval.
Any questions, councillors? Portfolio councillor, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Chair. Yeah, I think it's just tidying up the words, really, and yeah, I'm quite happy with the small change. I'm happy to move.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Smith. Questions, Councillor Rutherford?
I have no issue with the report or the recommendation. I do, however, sort of think back to when we were setting this area in the planning scheme, and there was a lot of discussion about whether this should have been commercial business, and we were advised no, to leave it as residential. And you can see by these applications now having to go through MCUs that, you know, maybe the planning scheme should have allowed for this on a major highway, you know, and is that something we need to address?
Yeah, I think, sorry, if I could, councillors, if I come back, the officer's recommendation for this application originally was for refusal. And I think when you look at the planning scheme, you'll see that the commercial centres actually goes along a few other different roads. Now, we're coming back to council over the coming months to do a commercial centres study, and I think you'd include that in that part of it to see that change and what it probably needs to do, councillors. So, yeah, that'll come back and be addressed by council.
All right, thanks.
Councillor Wickerson.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm in support of this as well, but I thought this would be a good time to bring up that is there a process in place to advise or personally advise the adjoining properties? I know this one is sort of just a tidying up thing, but we just did a recent one with the coffee drive-through. I've had a number of inquiries from residents adjoining that the first they knew of that resolution, they don't follow us online or whatever, was when it was in the paper. So I was probably just a bit disappointed that those immediately impacted properties weren't formally contacted. I mean, they went to the trouble of putting in not a complaint, but a report against it, and then weren't contacted back with the outcome. So just wanted to make sure that we have a process in place that it is that more personal approach back to the impacted properties adjoining.
Yes, that's probably not our role in this case. Yeah, so they would be, if they put a submission in, they would have been notified of the decision of council at that point in time.
Well, that's what they were complaining about, Mr Chair, that they weren't for some reason. First they knew as they read it in the paper.
Yeah, there would have been a notice out on site, A0, A1 notice on site of the proposed development that's done by the actual applicant.
Yeah.
Then those people, then if they wish, do their submissions to council as a part of that. We would address where we can their submissions, whether or not they're based around planning. If, at the end of that decision making, they would be notified of an approval or a refusal. So if they don't put anything in, they won't hear back from us. That's the actual...
The adjoining owners also get letters.
Yeah.
So there's letters, signs and a newspaper ad. That's the three sort of prong requirements for public notification. When the decision's approved, then they will get a copy of that notice and they have the ability to negotiate or appeal that decision with council as well, similar to what the applicant can do. So, yeah, they have that right to go through that process, but, yeah.
I guess the issue is that the media is probably instant, so they'll beat us to getting some reply back out if it's on its way. So, I guess so, yeah. Okay.
Councillor Smith?
I'm just asking, but I think it normally takes a couple of weeks. Have we got 30 days or something to advise any submitters, or is there a timeline on that? I've usually found it's 2 or 3 weeks after, by the time we
So
get
they,
to that stage.
when the approval is given, they have 20 business days to respond to council. And once that period's lapsed, then the applicant has their 20 days to negotiate.
Okay. Any other questions, councillors? So it's been moved by Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Wiggerson. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no reports from sports parks and public services. Yes. I almost left Donna out. Oh, I missed that one.
So did I.
You could have sort of said, oh, I was waiting for you to do it. I didn't forget you, Donna, really.
It was my fault.
No. Well, unfortunately, we've spent all your budget now, so we're good. No. Look, moving on to our next item, which is the waste and waste to resource. Waste and recycling portfolio sounds so much better. Portfolio councillor is Councillor Latcham, and this is item 10.6, Lakes Creek Road Tip Shop, Resource Recovery Centre and Waste Transfer Station operations, and ask Michael to the lectern. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair, and good morning, councillors. First of all, I probably just apologise. This is quite a lengthy report. There's a lot in it. This is possibly the most important report I've put to council in a long time. So I'm actually going to spend a little bit of time to go through it in some detail, if I can, please. So the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the current status at Lakes Creek Road of the tip shop operation, the Resource Recovery Centre and the transfer station up on top of the hill. And I will be seeking endorsement from council to award a new contract for that service. So currently those three operations, the tip shop, the Resource Recovery Centre and the transfer station, are operated under a contract. That contract expires on the 19th of May and there's no further options to extend. So we went out to tender late last year. We've received 4 submissions to that tender process. I can say that none of the entities that made a submission were purely local companies. They were all companies from outside of our region that were looking to employ local staff within our region to service this contract, but the overall contract management would be done from outside of our region. So the highest ranking entity is a not-for-profit organisation. They will employ locally disadvantaged people from within our region, long-term unemployed, handicapped, as such. They're very experienced in this space. They run 13 similar facilities in New South Wales and 2 currently in Queensland. So they're a fairly large not-for-profit entity with a lot of experience in this space. And from the reference checks as part of that tender evaluation process, my colleagues got very good feedback on their performance. So again, just wanted to put a little bit of context around the importance of this operation. So, you know, under the Waste Reduction and Recycling Act, Queensland has a resource recovery strategy. We have obligations under that strategy to meet certain targets and diversion targets, as I've discussed previously, that we need to meet within, you know, over the next 30 years, and the next targets are 2025, 2030, 40 and 50. And this operation plays a really important part in assisting us to achieve those targets, amongst other things, obviously. So it's estimated from this operation that we divert some 2,800 tonnes from landfill on an annual basis, okay, and that's through the operation of the tip shop. More tonnes than that are diverted through the operation of the Resource Recovery Centre that, you know, feed that also allows customers to drop off other recyclables that is somewhat but interrelated to the tip shop. So there's also a lot of local context for us. You know, we've got our waste strategy where we've made a commitment to get to zero waste or 90% diversion from landfill by 2050, and again, this operation really plays an important part. And the tip shop, in the resource recovery and the tip shop really play, in my opinion, a really important part in supporting our community by providing them inexpensive items for purchase, and also allowing them to drop off resaleable and recyclable items at no charge. Staggering numbers, the Resource Recovery Centre and the tip shop service 93,000 customers a year, so it's not insignificant. And of those, about 2/3, so 62,000, once they've entered the Resource Recovery Centre and or the tip shop, they then exit the site. So 2/3 of those customers don't have any interaction with the landfill and don't pay any fee, which is another really important contribution to the community. So items from the tip shop are sourced from the Resource Recovery Centre. Closure of the tip shop would cause, again in my opinion, or it would cause a majority of customers being redirected to the gatehouse to pay for disposal of waste instead of being able to drop it off for free. This would also consume additional airspace, and I'll go into that at the impact of that a little bit later. And that airspace really needs to be managed very carefully because we only have one landfill and we will probably only ever have one landfill. Additionally, removing that functionality of the Resource Recovery Centre, you're really just preventing that free drop-off for our community of all of those recyclables. There is an attachment 1, which I'm happy to speak to, but it just sort of shows a map of the site and the traffic flows, and that's some of the numbers that I've already said. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. So the current contract scope, so, you know, it's removal of all the scrap metal, it's the staffing of the Resource Recovery Centre, it's the staffing of the transfer stations, it's the staffing of the tip shop, and it's really a very hands-on contract because a lot of the customers that go through there need that one-on-one direction and assistance to help them where to put their various items. Currently, this facility, or this operation, does lose $47,000 in the P&L, so we get a little bit of scrap revenue, we pay the contractor a little bit, they retain all of the tip fees, and the balance of that is we lose about $47,000 under this arrangement. So recognising council's position at the moment, and particularly its financial position, we're all looking for savings and we worked really hard in that space. We've looked at a number of options. One was to award the contract, which I'll get to, and 2 was to look at the impact of closing the tip shop, and then for the Resource Recovery Centre to be operated, staffed by my team directly. So I'll just go through some of this. So option 1, new contract. So the tender would include, resourcing of all of those facilities. And what it does do, it actually does also exclude the sale of the scrap metal, and that scrap metal will be done through a separate quarterly tender process to make sure we get the absolute maximum value from that scrap metal based on the market value at that time. We believe at the moment that the way that our current contract is set up, that the contractor is probably realising somewhere between $300,000 to $400,000 worth of revenue from that scrap on an annual basis, and we get about 70,000 of that, which we don't think's right. So this alternative, closure of the tip shop, so should council decide not to award the contract and therefore we go down option 2 path, we don't have the staff to do it. So straight away I'd need to employ a minimum of 4 staff. And I'd say that's a minimum. I think I could do it, but it would depend on how the operation goes and if we're getting complaints because we're not servicing the customers correctly, giving them that level of support and assistance, then I don't know. We may need to add to that. And I've put in the report here that closing the Resource Recovery Centre is just not an option. And one of the reasons why I put that is because that centre, in that area, we recycle e-waste, gas bottles, batteries, tyres, paint, waste oils, oil containers, fire extinguishers, all of the full suite of commingled recyclables, mattresses. Like, it's a massive operation, it's a massive service to the community, and closing that I think would be just cause us significant pain. So if we were to employ staff, obviously there's a cost related to that. 4 staff would be about $350K a year. We'd also need to get a forklift, a small tip truck and some other sort of hand tools and stuff to allow us to do that. So I mentioned earlier that we believe we divert 2,800 tonnes of material through that operation per year. I just want to put some figures around that. So 2,800 tonnes would equate to about a $240,000 per annum loss in undervaluing our airspace at the landfill. Currently, our cost of airspace is about $180 per tonne. Our domestic charge, while it's a unit charge, it's based on $94 per tonne, so we're losing $86 per tonne for every domestic tonne of waste going into the landfill. So you just multiply that out, we'd be losing $240,000 in airspace, in undervaluing that airspace. If we also shut this down and those 2,800 tonnes went to landfill, then council would then be liable for the waste levy that we would need to pay the state government on that, and because we can't charge the customer for that, we'd be out of pocket another $240,000. And that's just simply 2,800 tonnes multiplied by $85 a tonne. And that liability will increase by $15,000 year on year as that levy increases by $5 per tonne year on year. So in summary, we think, I believe, my officers believe that option 1 provides the best overall outcome to council, maximises diversion, provides a fantastic customer experiences, minimises all of those risks that I presented, and importantly, it really does provide a really good employment opportunity for some of the most disadvantaged in our community. And this was something that I've wanted to do since the day I joined council almost 5 years ago. Because of my previous life and what I'd done, it provides a really good goodwill at that facility because of those people that we employ. So there are budget impacts, and that's why this report is difficult, and I appreciate that. So again, understanding that, once we got the submissions and once we shortlisted, we went back and we tried to negotiate some upside if they achieved a higher revenue through the tip shop than what we currently are. And I personally believe that's achievable, and I've spoken to Cairns and Townsville and Mackay and Toowoomba, and I believe we can achieve a higher revenue. So what we've done there, in the table there at the bottom of page 3, just gives a revenue share that this contractor has agreed with us. So up to 3,000 they retain it all because that's what they're needing, that plus what they're wanting to charge us to cover their cost. From 3 to 400 we get an 80% share of that 100,000. 4 to 500 we get 70% of that 100,000, and after that it's a flat rate of 60%. So I'll come back to this, but what I'm asking for today is basing that we're going to achieve $400,000 of revenue through the tip shop. So I'm going to take that challenge on, and I'm going to make sure that we get it. And if we don't, then I'll have to wear it elsewhere in my budget. So the overall financial impact, I've got a table there at the top of page 4, and all I wanted to go through with you probably was, so we've got option 1, new contract, and I've got year 1 and year 2. Year 1 is what I'm putting forward, obviously with the view that we will work very closely with this contractor to try and absolutely maximise the revenue through that tip shop, and if we can get it to 500, 600, 700, then we will certainly do our best to do that. So what I'm asking for, and I'll get back to the resolution, is option 1, year 1 scenario, which has an impact on our budget of $435,000. So the big takeaway from this is I'm asking for, and I'll come back to it, but it's an increase in revenue and it's an increase in expense. But the net difference, it's an impact, a negative impact to my budget of $435,000. The interesting comparisons then, if I look at option 2, is around the closure of the tip shop and for me to employ additional staff to run that resource recovery centre, is that the impact to my budget would be $372,000. So potentially, by doing that and taking that fairly drastic action of shutting the tip shop, we're going to save $63,000. But that's not even quite the case, which I'll get to you shortly. In addition to that, I'd need about $100,000 worth of capital to get a forklift and a truck, and that obviously be a recurring capital requirement for that. So in summary, closure of the Resource Recovery Centre and Waste Transfer Station is not an option. I've explained that, I hope. Closure of the tip shop would have widespread and long-lasting impacts on customer service, costs incurred by customers, landfill airspace consumption, and I believe public perception. 93,000 customers use the resource recovery and tip shop per year. From this, 2,800 tonnes is diverted. The reduction in waste levy liability is 240,000. Saving by customers, so again, if we're now going to ask them to pay for all of this material as it's going over the weighbridge and it's going to be disposed in landfill, we're going to be passing that cost on at about $260,000 a year to our customers. The operation of the Resource Recovery and Waste Transfer Station, closure of the tip shop, in-house with, operation with in-house staff requires the employment of additional resources and provides minimal cost reduction, which I said is potentially at $63,000. Or if you look at that loss of airspace, or undervalue of the airspace, which I mentioned before at $240,000, it actually means that closure of that will actually cost council more by $177,000. It's not, there's no saving, it's actually an additional cost. If you try and look at the big picture and all of the costs related. So, with that, so awarding the new tender will require an adjustment to our budget, and what we would be asking for is an increase in our revenue of $257,000 and an increase in our expense of $692,000, which provides that net difference of $435,000. The other point, and I know you're kind of only measured against what you achieved yesterday, but you know, year on year, we've provided a lot of savings to our operating budget, far more than $435,000. And those savings have been made as a result of operational efficiencies, tender processes and other reasons, and this is just the outcome of trying to improve the service we provide, which will be significant, and a tender process. Okay. So I think with that, so resolution, well, that the recommendation, I guess, is to award the contract as a whole to Community Resources Limited, who were ranked number 1 in the assessment, and to adjust the budget accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I'll open up for questions, but first, Portfolio Councillor, Councillor Latcham.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just got it written here. So I'd like to thank Michael and your team for compiling this report. It takes a lot of time and effort to prepare the tender guidelines, then take it to the market, then to have to make a recommendation on the best way forward from the quality of tender applicants received. As explained, currently the cost to RRWR, Lakes Creek Waste Transfer Station, the Resource Recovery Centre and Trendy Trash Tip Shop facility this last year was a net loss to council of around $50,000. By comparison, on a worst case scenario, this proposed contract would be a net loss to council of $562,000, more than $500,000 difference, assuming scrap metal would generate $250,000 income. I'd suggest that the tender guidelines should have been more incentive-based to encourage extracting more items that can be recycled and reused in our community to reduce waste material going to the landfill. I'd suggest another option would be to offer the opportunity for a successful tender applicant to take 100% from all the sales of the Trendy Trash Tip Shop and take 100% of all sales from the scrap metal. According to the report, this is projected to be greater than $550,000 in year 1 and greater than $650,000 in year 2. That's more generous than the current contract arrangements that is, and is no cost to Rockhampton Regional Council. If there is no successful tender, then I'd suggest the council maintain full control of the facility, including the running of the Trendy Trash Tip Shop. I am concerned about the assumptions made in the report if sales from Trendy Trash Tip Shop does not exceed $300,000 and if the sale of scrap metal does not raise $250,000. However, if these assumptions are correct, then it'd be more cost effective to maintain our own staff and equipment and operate the Trendy Trash Tip Shop for profit while employing local jobs. The Trendy Trash Tip Shop, Resource Recovery Centre and Waste Transfer Station operation has the potential to be profitable. We have a product that enables a savvy operator the opportunity to make this a successful business. I know time is of the essence for a decision with the looming expiry date of the current contract. However, at this time, I do not support the officer's recommendations.
Michael?
Oh, look, where do I start, I guess? I certainly disagree with consolidating it again. If you put the scrap metal, because of the fluctuation in that market, and you put all of that into one package, then we will get a very, very, very conservative price, and they will assume that they will get almost zero scrap metal revenue in their equation, because there's only pain for them if they assume they're going to get a high rate, and they don't. It's only pain for them. This way, at least we know what our costs are. We know we're always going to get a fair market value, because we're going to test that market on a quarterly basis through a panel arrangement that we've got set up. I believe this is value for money. We went out to tender. We've got 4 submissions. We're not happy with the current arrangement on site. It's under-resourced. I'm not sure if any councillors have been there recently, but the site does not look up to standard, and it certainly needs to sort of be brought in together and managed much more better than it currently is.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Go to questions around the table. Councillor Rutherford?
No, you go.
Michael, thank you very much for the report and thank you for the explanations. It's a tough thing for us to hear, so it would have been tough for you to write. Just probably on a broader thing is, had our budget considered the increase in this cost moving forward?
In the budget revisions we've just submitted, Councillor, was that your
Well,
or just
I
as
guess
a risk?
we've just done a lot of review on our rural waste services and everything to save money. And I'm guessing that any of the money we've just saved now will be used.
We did flag this as a risk because we went out to tender in December. Every time we go to tender, you don't know what you're going to get back. And what we've done since we received these submissions back and this party was shortlisted, we've actually gone back on multiple occasions to them to try and negotiate a better deal. And that's where that profit share came in. Originally, that was not on the table. It was only after that and we realised, wow, this is going to have a significant impact on our budget, that we've gone back to them through our procurement team to try and negotiate a better outcome, and that's the outcome we've come up with. I do believe it's value for money. I believe if we went out to tender again tomorrow, very likely we wouldn't get anything better. Last time we went to tender for this same scope, which included the scrap metal in it, was just before I joined council, so it would have been about 6 years ago. Other than the incumbent, the next best price was over $1 million a year.
Michael,
including
and
scrap metal
through
into
the
that.
chair, I don't doubt for a moment the work that you and your team have put in it, and that you have achieved a great outcome. I'm not questioning that for any minute, but we had relied quite heavily on finding savings from this area, and we all sacrificed a fair bit with those rural, the waste things, to now find out, well, that's really not going to be for anything in the long run, so we're still going to have to find savings to make up for this. Now, that's not your fault. I'm not saying that for a moment. It's probably just, difficult to see the pain we've gone through now to actually not have achieved anything with it. Does that negate the great work you've done and the fact that you've probably saved us a heap of money in the outcome of this? Certainly, it's just, I don't know where we sit now with our broader budget, given we had relied on that money. Yeah.
I was going to... Yeah.
I just got through the
I now have all officers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Peter
I was just
Van
going to
Ross.
explain something through the chair, and that is, we did see this as a risk, sorry, and but we are looking at every budget and every process to see if we can have savings. But at times there will be other cases like this where we have no choice to reflect what the market and the cost is. So I think what's important is if you looked back over the last 3 years with the various collection contracts and the other activities we're doing in waste, even though this is a jump of $500,000, I'll say round off, overall we have significantly reduced the cost and operation of waste. And remember, we're picking up so many more bins than we did at the start, with no more resources.
Well, I actually just cut my overtime budget in what I've just submitted by $100,000 for the collections team because we've made so many operational efficiencies. Like if there is a saving there, we're putting it forward. But
there will always be cases where there's nothing we can do about a particular service and how we deliver it, and the cost goes up.
Ross, would you like to...
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Just on the broader budget, I think that was your question, Councillor. Yeah. At this stage, the operational budget have just closed. The PAC's closed Friday. We did that work with Council on a higher level a couple of months ago. But you may recall at that point we said they were the known things. We still had a lot of the budgets to be submitted, so we're still working through that. So, there's still a fair body of work to do before we can come back to Council with here's an operational position to say we've met those targets or not. So, sorry, it doesn't give you an answer, but we just don't have an answer just at this point.
And Mr Deputy Mayor, just finish off, because I know that sort of hit Michael pretty hard. I congratulate you on the work you've done. You know, I certainly do. It's hard to make officers stand up there and justify, but $500,000, whether you say it quickly or slow, is still a lot of money for us to find. So, but congratulations on the work you did.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Through you, just mostly comments, but a couple of questions too. And like Councillor Rutherford, appreciate the work that's gone into this to lay it on the table for us. Difficult to hear, of course, trying to find another $500,000, naturally enough. But I think in the longer scheme, like the whole life cycle of our current waste facility, to put that into context too, and you detail that out, that airspace does have a value. And we talked about the food organics and garden organics the other day too, that would mean that maybe we would never need another dump site. So this is a part of that as well. And that's big bucks if we've got to start looking at that. So in the overall scheme of it, yes, it's hard to hear and probably equally hard to find, but in the bigger scheme of things, it's something we just have to do. One suggestion I had, and probably this might be to Evan, would this not be a good candidate for our sustainable Rockhampton Investment Fund, if there's any money at all left still in that?
It's an operational cost, this one. It's not an investment, really. It's just an operational cost.
I was just refreshing myself, and we've looked at renewable energy projects in the past, solar and so forth, but there is a requirement in there for waste avoidance and encouraging recycling. This seems to fit.
Let Roscoe jump into it, or you go again, Ross.
Through the chair, not really, I guess is the easiest answer. We don't actually really have a fund that's sitting there that's got money in it anyway that we could just allocate to it. So it's case by case basis. But I mean, you could certainly measure it against it, but it's certainly not. Yeah, there's no bucket of money there.
No bucket of money
sitting there. For
No, understood.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Chair. I'm glad to know the tip shop's still there, because it's one of my favourite places.
My dad's as well.
And yeah, appreciate what Councillor Latcham is saying, but with what Michael said about, the place needs to be, tidied up a little bit, that would cost us money in the long run. I have seen a facility that the recommended contractor operates, and it's operated very well. And I think, if this doesn't work, we can always go to another option. I think, great lot of information. Thank you very much. And I think waste is something that, it's always going to cost us money. And as Councillor Rutherford said, we did cut back on a lot of hours in the rural areas, and it hasn't gone down very well in places, especially Gracemere. But I know we're trying to make that saving, and I think when people appreciate that we are trying to make savings and make things better, they will understand more.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I did just want to ask you, Michael, how long is the actual contract for again?
Quite sure. I can't categorize. I think 3 + 1 + 1.
Right.
So 3, and then it's council's discretion to extend.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the sort of longer term things that we're trying to as well is get this place working really well and have the tip shop operating, much better than what it is, and really expand on that clientele, so that again, when we go out to tender in the future, it's a much more valuable proposition for someone else to come in. At the moment, they're really coming in at a low level, and there's a lot of work to be done to get it where it needs to be.
Yeah. Within that contract, is there an option then, if it's 3 years, do you think that's a reasonable time then for us to reassess it, make sure it's all working? Yep.
Yeah, I believe so.
Awesome. Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Look, there was a number of queries I had with this report as well, and I spent a fair bit of time yesterday afternoon actually talking to councillor colleagues from Mackay, Townsville and Cairns. And look, what we're facing is not new, and each of these councils are going through exactly the same. What is the perfect mix, and what is the best value for the ratepayers? And Cairns have just gone through a process. At the surface, it appears to be working okay, but there's still problems. Townsville has just basically gone it alone with then a contractor just looking at the recovery at the landfill. The councillor there believes that it's working well, but it's early days. Mackay, very much like us, really trying hard to find a model that works for Mackay region. So it's not like Michael, and even talking with the other officers, can sort of say, what we've got here, this is a perfect model, it's working in 3 or 4 similar communities. No one has got that perfect model yet. And I think while there could still be some prickles that could arise down the track, and is it going to have the best economic value to our community? Is it going to provide the best result for our budget and what moving forward? I think, look, that is still very much, it looks like it could, but there's some unknowns. I think the report and the detail of the report that Michael has actually provided us today is that his team have worked extremely hard, and Michael has worked extremely hard to try to come to what is the best that we could look at the moment. And I take on board his comments that, okay, improvements as they go forward in the future, this is going to have more opportunities. But dealing with every part of waste at the moment there's an unknown. 10 years ago, waste was something there that we dug holes, shoved it in the ground, covered it over, no one wants to know about it. Now it is not only a local government issue, a state issue, but it is a national issue, and how we move forward to actually minimise the amount of waste that goes to our landfills. And we've all got to be mindful that Lakes Creek Road will be the very last landfill that we will ever have. And all of us will be long gone, and it will still be operating. So we've got sort of something that what we start to set in place now is actually doing something for the generations ahead of us. And each of these little steps are worth moving forward. We need to have that constant review. And I think that what we've been presented today gives us details of, okay, this is another step in moving forward to actually having as minimal amount of material going to the landfill as possible. So with that, any other questions? Councillor Mathers.
Deputy Mayor, through the chair, if that's all right.
Yes.
Michael, just quickly, what's the current revenue coming out of the tip shop now with the contract that's operating?
300,000.
So it is reaching that now?
Yeah.
Okay. So the fact that we're trying to push before should be something that would be doable?
I believe it will be. Again, I probably don't want to say numbers, but I know Cairns is probably 2.5 times that. The contractor that does Mackay have said they achieve 3 times that. Toowoomba have told me they achieve about close to 2 times that, about 170% of that sort of stuff. So I believe 300 is, I believe 400 is certainly achievable. But and I think it will take, I'd like to think that we'll get to 400 and then 500 and then maybe 550 over that period of time, but that's certainly what we'll be aiming for.
Thank you. Thank you for your effort.
Any further questions, councillors? If no further questions, we seek a... okay, moved Councillor Rutherford, seconded Councillor Wickerson. Now, they've been moved. Any dissent in the officer's resolution? If none, I'll put that. All those in favour? All those against? Okay. The motion has been carried. Councillor Latcham recorded his vote against. the resolution. With that, councillors, I'm going to call a recess for 20 minutes. And just seek a seconder. Councillor Kirkland. All those in favour, and we will resume in 20 minutes' time. Thank you.
Behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the fun line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Okay, so resume the meeting. We don't need resolution for that. No. All good. So everybody's ready? Yep. Address that caffeine need and straight into another very important program. So this one here, we don't have any water and supporting a better environment portfolio item. So our next one there is budget, governance and other matters, and item 10.7, and this is the draft accuracy program. Yes. Yes, I'll just put that in. That's just one more for the Christmas party. And would like to ask Genevieve to the lectern. Thanks, Genevieve.
Good morning, councillors. This report seeks the adoption of an advocacy framework for Rockhampton Regional Council, as well as the approval for the development of a 2021 advocacy strategy. Advocating for state and federal governments, as well as partnering with other stakeholders in our region to achieve the best outcomes for our community, is one of the key roles that Council performs. This framework, which went to workshop on the 3rd of March, is designed to formalise the process by which Council performs these advocacy activities so that we can ensure that when we're advocating, we're doing so effectively and consistently. To this end, the framework maps the roles and responsibilities of those involved in advocacy, including officers and councillors. It also outlines a process for implementation and some criteria for measuring success. One of the immediate actions this framework outlines is the establishment of project teams for each of the priorities which was previously adopted by Council. These project teams will include an allocated councillor, the relevant general manager or manager, as well as an officer from the communications team. And the project plans that these teams create will then be collated into a whole of council advocacy strategy, which will be brought back to the council table. What we're seeking today is the adoption of the framework, as well as approval to begin developing the 2021 advocacy strategy. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Genevieve. Firstly, to Councillor Smith.
Oh yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Just to say it's really good, Genevieve. Thank you. And to think it's so important, I'm wondering why we haven't always had one, and why we're just doing one now. So, yeah, great work to all the team who brought it together. I know we've got to have, things for everything, frameworks and policies for everything. But I'm just wondering, this is so important, and we do it anyway. So I'm thinking, why haven't we ever done this before? But anyway, it's good that it's come to the table now.
Yes, look, I think this is really important, and what you've said, Councillor Smith, is you've just got to look at the Townsvilles and the Toowoomba's. When they get a cold, the other upper levels of government give them hundreds or $1 million notes to blow their noses on, and we've always sort of missed out, but they have been very, very quick, very swift, and it's having that framework to actually in place so that then they can move forward. Unfortunately, we have been sort of very ad hoc in how we've addressed things. So I think I actually think this has been a really great piece of work, Genevieve, and that this is not only for the benefit of the councillors, but it must, Mr. CEO, must make the role with your officers so much better as well. So I think this is a really good start. Watch out Townsville, watch out Toowoomba. We're on our way as well, and it's time for us to get our share of the pie as well. Councillor Wickerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Exactly what you said. We have probably a little bit of a problem in the past. We'll have a list like this, and then we sort of chop and change it around. Something might come out of left field and be elevated to the top of the list, which is not consistent. So we've got to really have the same hymn sheet, we talk about that all the time, and stick to it over a prolonged period, not just till the next media cycle or whatever. So it's excellent work to have it all encapsulated in this document. I love the idea about teams, incorporating each of the councillors around the table and using their strengths and experience and networks or whatever to help officers achieve that goal. There was only one question I had, and it's only a minor one. Under the political advocacy teams, for council that had on a rotating basis. I just didn't understand what that meant. To my mind, if you had someone that had existing networks or whatever, you should keep that consistency and play that person in that role for that particular project. I didn't understand what was meant by rotating that position around. That was all, but otherwise excellent.
Through the chair, because when the advocacy team is going to these meetings in Canberra and Brisbane, they'll be discussing multiple topics. It won't just be the one priority. So that's why the thought is to have an rotating councillor. And I believe there's still some thought going into how that process will be allocated. But happy for Evan or Damon to, if there's anything to add.
And through the chair, yes, as Jen mentioned, probably in most instances where we are I guess, making those deputations to ministers both in Brisbane and Canberra. Typically, we take down a number of different priorities or different meetings that we're looking at progressing to obviously maximise the time when we're in those meeting with those ministers, both in Canberra and Brisbane. And so the idea is, and depending on the relevant priority that we're looking at pushing as a higher level at that particular time, then we would likely have the relevant responsible councillor attending with that. But it may be that we've got 4 or 5 different priority projects that we'll be advancing on any one particular day. So this was just certainly give an opportunity then for that to be rotated across the board depending on future meetings.
Thank you, Damon, for that. It's when it's not only just the different projects, Councillor Wickerson, but it is, as Genevieve said, those existing networks. And around the table, some of us would have great networks with one level of government where other councillors are going to have just a stronger network with a different level of government. And Townsville does this very, very well, and how they have even their approach is very, very targeted, and they go for the throat all the time. And it is the councillors with the best skills for that particular project, you're it. And I think we can learn from that because, gee, they do get a much bigger share of the pie than they should. So I think that's where what we have here, and we look around the table, look at the skills and the networks that we all would have. I think there that it's not only just getting to, say, Canberra, but then to get to that chance there where you can actually sort of have a one-on-one, might be after parliamentary sitting and with the ministers and their key staff. And, just having that 5-10 minutes of totally uninterrupted chat could actually deliver, sort of those projects that we need, or at least make it so that it goes to the top of the list for them to hand to the bureaucrats. So I think when you look around the table, we've got a really good group of skilled councillors that both levels of government we could actually go and knock on the door, and we've got councillors there that can sort of really have a friendly chat but really sell our region. So I think this is a great piece of work. Genevieve, thank you for this. I know that the Mayor, if he was here, he would be moving this, so I'm lucky enough there that I'm in the hot seat today, so I would like to move this and congratulate everyone who's been involved. And Councillor Smith, you're happy to second? And all of those in favour? And that's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Watch out, Canberra and George Street. William Street now. Tower of Power, yes, I'll have to remember that one. Okay, moving on to our next item, which is the summary of the Budget Management Report for the period ending 28th of February. Should have made the 29th of February, and then you would have only had to have done that every 4 years. Marnie, across to you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Good morning. So presented is the Summary Budget Management Report for the period ending 28th of February 2021. Presented is the income statement with actuals and budget for the period 1st of July to the 28th of February, as well as the key indicator graphs. You will note that the total operating revenue is at 87% of the revised budget. Results should approximately be around the 66.7% for this time of the year. So our operating revenue is ahead due to mainly the rates and utilities charges, which are sitting at 95% of the budget currently, due to the closure of the discount period on the 24th of February. We also have private works and recoverable works sitting above budget at 73%. However, our grants, subsidies and contributions are behind due mainly to the timing of the financial assistance grant, and the interest revenue is sitting at 75% of the budget, or ahead of the budget. Expenditure is within budget at 61%, and we've seen contractors and consultants at 57%, which are behind budget currently, but it's expected that these will continue and the momentum will pick up once their works that they're working on are completed and paid out. Some other things to note are that the capital income is behind budget at the moment at 46%. This is generally around that grants and subsidies area as well as capital expenditure being at 48% of the budget. You will note that during February we picked up the momentum again in relation to the capital spend, and we saw 10.1 million spent on our capital projects during that period. You will recall that we saw January very much drop off, and it was about $3 million spend during that period. So hopefully that momentum will continue, and we'll go towards achieving our capital expenditure budget of that $153 million that we have set in the revised budget. Any questions in relation?
Any questions to this report? Wow. Must be a very, very good report. No question. That's the first one. Look, thank you for the detail in the report, and that's why I don't think we've got any questions, because you've actually covered probably everything there that we needed to ask. So thank you for that. Everyone happy with that report? Someone happy to move that that be received? Moved Councillor Kirkland, seconded Councillor Latcham. All those in favour? And that's carried. Thank you, Marnie, for that. Okay, our next item is the Central Queensland Regional Organisation of Councils Limited. And do I need to step aside with this?
No, definitely don't. No.
Look, this has just been a tidy up of just our paperwork, and we had one meeting where I was the primary director. We just need to tidy this up so that our mayor actually goes into the role of the mayor. So prior to that, it was that I was there as acting mayor. And that's basically just that tidy up. That's correct, Evan?
That is all it is.
And I'm happy to move that that this this recommendation is moved. Seek a seconder. Councillor Mathers, any questions to that? No questions? All those in favour? And that's carried. Thank you for that. Next one's got a little bit more. Following the CQ Rock Limited funding agreements.
I'll flick to this one to me.
Yes, Evan.
Councillor, as I've mentioned previously, there's been a change to the actual recommendation. When you read the letter, you can read it a couple of ways, but in actual fact, our contribution towards CQ Rock organisation is a $5,000 base amount and then an amount based around population and revenue. So that equates to around $57,000 annual contribution. We'll look like we'll make, that is also included in the forthcoming budget and as a part of the revised budget. So if Council agree to this one, I will notify the Secretariat of CQ Rock, and no doubt we'll receive a partial pro rata invoice. Yeah.
Any questions to this, councillors?
Sorry, it's not so much to this, but it's a general question. Being unfamiliar with previous interactions with CQ Rock, is this a payment that's each year, and then also are there other requests for money from us during the operations of CQ Rock?
Yep, there will be this one-off annual amount, and that's why we'll just have to watch how and what we use the CQ Rock for, so it doesn't grow and grow and grow. But there's also project-based that we can contribute to. So if we wanted just to deal with, say, I don't know, a waste type of, let's just use waste or tourism, if we want to do some type of study through that, we can actually combine our money, and then those people who actually put their money in, we can, yeah, so project-based funding.
Councillor Smith?
Oh yeah, just Mr Mayor, I think everyone knows my feelings about this, I'm so happy that we're back in the fold, and the fact that it's now a company, you know, and being run very professionally. I'm really happy that we're part of the regional organisation that's advocating for this region, you know, and it can only be a good thing. And I think this is under the same pattern as we used to contribute to CQ Local Government Association, but a lot more. We used to contribute a lot more money, but in those days we had an annual conference. I was wondering if CQ Rock is going to have any conferences, because we did have, the last one was at Livingston. When we were a member, then we pulled out and now we're back in. I just wondered, because they were, you know, just such good information and good speakers, etc.
I remember that one very well, Councillor Smith. That one was where another council wanted to actually be part of the operation of the airport.
Yeah.
And I think that one was so dramatic. I think everyone's still recovering from that particular one. But I think that that's actually quite good. There was one prior to that in Emerald that was hosted by Central Highlands Council that was actually a very, very productive
It was. Yeah, we went to the one at Emerald as well.
And that was good because it's not just those that attend CQ Rock, but it is a very good opportunity for the councillors to actually have that network opportunity as well. So I think that is a really good idea. Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a question, maybe Evan could answer it, but would CQ Rock be forming part of our advocacy framework?
There's a further discussion later on the agenda about some regional or CQ Rock regional advocacy, so maybe if I could answer the question down there when we get to it, there will be a part of that. So yeah.
No worries.
Thank you. Well, if there's no further questions, I'm happy to move that...
Sorry,
Councillor Rutherford?
just a question, just curious, because in the past they used to, as the chairs rotated, the secretarial assistants rotated as well. So is there a reason why they've gone away from that model?
I think the CEOs weren't doing enough work for CQ Rock. We weren't achieving. The CEOs couldn't do their CEO job plus be the CQ Rock secretariat. And that was the basis behind it. So it's really gone back to the CQ-LGA model where there was a separate secretariat that reported through to... So we've got this...
So we had Shane...
We seconded Shane to that role separately. But if you remember, CQ-LGA had its own organisation and secretariat. CQ Rock is in the process of finalising the appointment of a permanent CQ Rock secretariat.
So and where will that person be stationed?
I'm not quite sure. I believe locally, which is, I think, maybe here.
Yeah, it's probably not a big one. I just think there's lots of little bits I'm a little unsure of. It's not something to die in a ditch over.
Yeah.
But, you know, the devil's always in the detail, and I do worry that these things have a tendency to blow out with additional staff or whatever, where I thought the old model where it whatever council was... The chair dealt with it. I thought that was a fairly cost-effective way of...
cost-effective, but ineffective.
Of doing it.
I know when I was doing the secretariat role, I couldn't do it justice in doing what it needed to follow up and the small behind-the-scenes advocacy that a secretariat does do. I just couldn't do it. I know that the other CEOs have struggled, and even to becoming a company, it's taken, you know, nearly 18 months, nearly 2 years, because you had one of the CEOs trying to progress it on the way through. So it just took so long to do. I think with CQ Rock, you know, it's a new organisation, so we just take away whatever CQ LGA was in the past, or when we were just CQ Rock members. This is a brand new organisation or entity, let's use that word, and it's still finding its feet. And I think there's got to be a lot of work around its bounds. And when we get to the next part of it, it probably opens up to, I do believe we need to set as a member what its bounds of it is. And so if we could just hold that point there, because I'd like to pick that up as a further discussion. Yeah, around there.
I guess probably just to add on to that, one of the things I thought about yesterday, and I probably should have asked it yesterday, but with the organisation, a few years back we talked about when we were council's representative on different boards, and given this is a board, where our loyalty sits. So our loyalty is always to council. So how do we, with these boards, whether it's CQ Rock, whether it's LawMac, whether it's, CQ Pest Management, where does the loyalty sit, and when there's a conflict, a matter of confidence and things like that?
Okay, probably two parts to it. This is a company. Okay, that's the big difference between LawMac or Capricorn Coast. Yes, anyway, you know what I mean. There's a big difference between that. So effectively, when you're on one of those organisations, your loyalty is very much with council. Okay, legislatively, your loyalty is with council. When we enter and councils enter into a company director, it becomes very, very difficult for them. They can be conflicted out, they can be confused, because technically they're very loyal to the local government. Well, they have to be very loyal to the Local Government Act and hence their council, but under the ACCC and all through the the company law or Corporations Act is that you need to also be loyal to your company as well. So we had Tim Fine-Clinton at the last CQ Rock meeting giving a presentation to those directors, particularly councillors and mayors, around what their loyalties will be and how to deal with some of those things. So that's going to be an ongoing discussion for CQ Rock as they're a new organisation. Generally, I don't see them running into too many conflicts of interest between their loyalty to their obligations under the Local Government Act and their obligations under the Corporations Act, because effectively we're trying to do the both things. You're working for local government generally. So I don't see that going to be coming out. However, if we were to go with our airport, when we were looking at our airport company, Rockhampton Air Services, there could have been a real conflict between the former mayor and myself when it comes to dealing with running that company and what was good for the council. Because they could be, one is trying to make money, and the other one over here is trying to do the community benefit, look after the community. That's when you get the conflict. So it's an ongoing one that the directors will have to be mindful of, particularly directors in a council or mayor role.
All right, thank you.
Actually, Tim Fine-Clinton's presentation was very, very good. And Evan, with LawMac, we're actually going through exactly that same. So LawMac on Friday actually approved for LawMac to actually start that process of incorporation and that very same thing. But I don't know if that presentation of Tim Fine-Clinton couldn't be, is it something that the councillors, once it's been approved?
Sure it was actually circulated in one of the CIBs, or will be circulated in one of the CIBs. So I'm just grabbing it.
It was very, very, I found it, actually found that was the best, the highlight of the day, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure it was in the CIB here. Yes, there it is. In the CIB of 12th of March. I'll just see if Tim's is in there. I'm talking to nothing. Yeah, if it's not in there, councillors, I'll get it circulated. It was a very good presentation from Tim. I'll get that done. I thought it was included. Yeah, I'll get him mixed up between the LGAQ, so I'll get that circulated.
And I think probably the other thing, Councillor Rutherford, is we've got to be mindful. Many of our organisations, particularly where LGAQ type organisations, they always become top heavy. And I think we've got to be very, very careful and mindful. And that was really, what happened with CQLGA. We ended up with so many people working for us we couldn't afford, and many of the smaller councils couldn't afford the membership. And even councils of our size, we've got to be very careful with who and what we're members with. So I think that that's the first thing. And Evan, I wouldn't mind having a workshop just discussing our views of direction for CQ Rock. My observations there are sort of some things there that I feel uncomfortable with and not being able to move forward. So, yeah. So we might sort of have that for a thing down the future. So I'm happy to move as recommended and seek a seconder. Councillor Smith. All of those in favour? And that's unanimous. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, item 10.11, and this is CQ Rocks Regional Advocacy. I'm having trouble with that pronunciation as well. Plenty of Christmas beepers from me today. So, Damon, across to you.
Thank you, Mr Chair, councillors. This next report for consideration this morning is seeking council's endorsements for a range of priorities for inclusion and consideration in CQ Rock's future advocacy agenda. A number of initiatives have been recommended in line with existing priorities that have recently been endorsed by council. For the purposes of those recommendations for CQ Rock, the priorities for consideration this morning have been identified, particularly where they are deemed to have benefit for more than one local government area. So not only of benefit to the Rockhampton local government area, but of broader benefit for the wider region. And probably to come back to Councillor May, there's your query earlier, in terms of it fitting within our broader advocacy framework, obviously advocating through CQ Rock is just one part of the overall advocacy plan that will be undertaken for these priorities. It's not just an inclusion of a priority in CQ Rock's agenda and then that's it. It is just one tool that council will use to progress to seek support and funding for council's priorities moving forward, and certainly is consistent with the framework that council has just adopted, particularly in terms of the tiers of priorities identified in that framework, and also, as noted in the report, around probably moving away from, or recommending a movement away in CQ Rock's advocacy from individual projects, but to those that do provide more regional benefits, so that it's not a situation where we're pitting one council against another for a particular individual project. But happy to take any questions.
If I could, just to help
just
elaborate.
Ask you.
Sorry, Mr Mayor. I circulated or had a fairly good discussions with the other CEOs of CQ Rock on Friday, because I was I was expressing a little bit uncomfortable with the current Reef to Red Ridge. It's very much a singular project to go about that, and I don't think that's probably the basis of CQ Rock. When you look at NQ Rock or Wide Bay Burnett Rock, when they have their advocacy projects, they're based or advocacy and or priorities, it doesn't mean which way you want to crack this one, is that they're very much at a policy level they're targeting at. So when they talk about a road upgrade, they don't talk about individual roads, they talk about increasing the transport capacity of the whole region that they're going about, and this is how we can do it. And within that document there's a bit of a strategy. This road over here for beef, this over here for fish, or whatever you want to do. NQ Rock talks about defence. That's a whole big one. And when you look at the Wide Bay Burnett, the same type of thing. So during my discussion with the CEOs, I said, yes, my council's going to look at some priorities for Reef to Red Ridge, but I believe we shouldn't take it any further by creating a new document until CQ Rock, which has on their agenda to do with strategic priorities of CQ Rock. I think the Reef to Red Ridge it's the next step over here. We should stop, set our strategic priorities, and going back to where Damon is very much the CEOs agree with this three-tier model that I've been speaking for a fair while, which basically tier one is, and I'll just read out a bit of stuff that I've got, is CQ Rock. It's an entire region priority. This will be the primary focus and efforts of CQ Rock, and including a letter of support. Okay, and these things might be more investment in road transport or more investment in developing water supply right across CQ Rock. Tier 2 is where it benefits 2 or more members. For the benefiting councils, but CQ Rock can resolve to agree to make it a CQ Rock priority, the effort expended is reduced. So our CQ Rock is always at the really high level to want to improve things. Tier 3 is there's only a singular benefiting council, and this is probably, there's a limited to no focus by CQ Rock on that singular benefit and should not be supplying a letter of support, because effectively CQ Rock, with no resolution of the fellow members, could be writing a letter of support against for your project, and which is you're pitted up against your project. So I don't think we should play favourites, and I think that was the issue, particularly of the former mayor when it came to these type of organisations. And I think if we keep it at a high level, so going back to what Damon's recommending up here, I don't believe that'll get progressed until we actually set this other CQ priorities. But it'd be good to have this on the table to actually start a higher level discussion.
Thank you so much for that, Evan. And that was kind of what I was raising in the last discussion. That was one of my concerns as well. So we'll go to some questions around the table. Councillor Smith?
I went to great pains to argue for Gracemere High School to be included in the non-council projects, but it's gone off the list. Not unless you meant it to be under community advocacy, but I'd like it to be mentioned on there, and we put it on there, but it's disappeared.
It's a different list.
And through the chair, Councillor Smith, through the just recalling the timeline of how these advocacy priorities have been endorsed by council initially back in the 25th of February. We subsequently did have that councillor workshop informal meeting more recently to discuss the CQ Rock, and certainly, as you've noted with the Gracemere High School, it has been included as far as a priority for council, and certainly fits within that health and education development. So the list that's included in the report is probably a bit higher level description of the priorities, and then within each of those there are, in certain areas, a number of different priorities that are being progressed there, both that have been discussed previously with council. So just to reassure you, Councillor Smith, that Gracemere High School certainly is in our list and will be part of those discussions with council moving forward.
Yes, sorry, I remember now. Forgetting that this is just CQ Rock advocacy. So the lists are very similar, so probably nearly the same.
They are. We've got a list that contains a number of projects, and what officers have done have gone, okay, what makes CQ Rock, what would we think makes CQ Rocks, how can we grab those and brought them to table? That list here hasn't changed.
Okay, Councillor Rutherford.
Not a question, but a comment, if I could, and it really is to reinforce exactly what Evan and Damon said. While I agree with the recommendation here because of the existing Reef to Red Ridge document, I don't agree with the document, and I don't agree with, and that Tier 3. My experience with CQ Rock was that those Tier 3 projects, it was probably the reason why CQ Rock fell apart, and we need to play above that, right above that, and it needs to focus very much on the broader region and things like that. I think the minute you come into projects that just benefit the one local government area, that's when you get the issues starting to arise, and that was what was happening, and so we should. We're loyal to our own local government area, so yes, agree. But do I agree that this is what CQ Rock should be promoting? No, I don't. And I think it's really important that when the new organisation sits and forms its list, it holds itself higher than at least Tier 3, Tier 1 and 2. And maybe not 3, not delve in that space at all.
Okay, any other questions, councillors? Councillor Rutherford, I share your same concerns with this document, and I've had a number of occasions where I've been able to express my opposition to sort of how some of these have been put together, but in some ways I can sort of see where sort of some of the pathways that they were going, why they were doing it, but we're looking at it probably not from a higher level. And the one that always I found was the better transport connectivities within the CQ Rock is always very important. And we've raised some here. We know that there are a number of projects that individual councils or joint councils would like to see to benefit their region, but we know that we've always got to look at what are those key ones that are going to benefit all of the CQ Rock councils, and one of the ones was always the Capricorn Highway and the importance of that. And even with the roads of strategic importance, that Yeppoon to Mount Isa that they list is one of those key projects that the federal government are really keen to champion. But how we get that connectivity to the Capricorn Highway, and it's not just where we have raised here the Glenroy Road and the Glenroy Crossing, but it's also we want to get more beef and more cattle into our region. And it's some of those connector roads that are very, very important. They are outside the CQ Rock area, but if we've got a strategic plan that actually looks at how we can better that connectivity, we're all going to win as each members of the CQ Rock. So I think this is sort of moving in the right direction. Quite often you've got to dip your toe in the water first, and I think this is what this document was. And moving forward, if we can be more strategic as a group, I think we're going to be much better prepared to be able to put up those sort of documents and those proposals that we can take to other levels of government. So I commend what has been recommended and happy to move. I know that the Mayor would be there to move those, so sitting in the chair, I'll take that opportunity to move. Seek a seconder. Councillor Kirkland. No further questions. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously as well. Thank you. Thank you for that work that's gone on behind the scenes. This is probably, we're already starting to move our region into a much better place that we can actually go and secure more opportunities. Okay, we're getting towards the end of our meeting. Notices of motion? No? I was just before urgent business. Yeah, but I said when I said when we there that I would do that just before urgent business. So no questions on notice. Well then, our next item we've got to lift from the table. Item
10.2.
10.2, and I'm happy to move. Seek a seconder. Councillor Smith. All those in favour? And that's carried. So Ross, you were going to just find out those bit of information about that signage and the package.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cut along. I'll go back a bit more detail, but in a moment. But the bottom line is, at this point in time, they're the most up-to-date screens that are available, as we have. So that's why they're moving forward. To go back a step, the current system we have has sitting behind it, there's controllers and so forth and software. That's why why we prefer to stay with the supplier, because all that background stuff stays there, and it's just these new screens tap into it, so we don't have to replace all that background support infrastructure. And it is used. It is the industry standard type system. Like there's over 30 airports using it, so it's the most frequently used, and it's the most up-to-date one they currently have. So that hopefully that answers the question, councillors.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, satisfied with that, and thank you for doing the research to find out. Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you. So, councillors, we have a recommendation. There's no further comment. I'm happy to move. Seek a seconder. Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favour? And that's carried. Now we move on to general business. If anyone has got any general business. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr Chair. A couple of things. The first one, probably a little bit disappointed that the launch of Beef Festival was on the other evening, apparently. There was no council representation there, at councillor level, I should say. I don't know about officers. No, I understood that some members of the media were quite critical of council that, that we weren't there. I don't know if that was an oversight or why, but they're just disappointed at it.
Through the chair, just in relation to some background on that, Beef Australia did forward an invitation to the Mayor to be able to attend that. Unfortunately, due to other commitments, the Mayor was unavailable, and we spoke with Beef, and they were happy for that invitation to be extended then to the Deputy Mayor, but unfortunately, again, the Deputy Mayor was unavailable to attend that particular event, and essentially that's where the invite ended. It wasn't a broad invite that went through Beef Australia. I spoke to the CEO of Beef prior to the event, and again, I'm not sure, I wasn't at the event myself, but he was confirmed that he would pass on to those in attendance council's apologies there.
Yep, okay, accepted. The other two probably a bit more positive. I wanted to thank staff, Damon and many others for the community consultation with the Friends of the Heritage Village. I know some councillors that couldn't make it to those two events. Appreciate your attendance there. I think it was probably better than what we expected it might be. We were half expecting torches and pitchforks, but there was a little bit of that, but they were blunt. And I think it's a good step moving forward that I think we're coming together on the same sort of a page. I think getting closer and closer together, that we're all heading in the same direction, probably with some little differences but along the way, but we're all heading in the same direction, so that's a good start. And I think the next stage, Damon, correct me, is then we get in probably in the more detail of, we had a bit of a state of the nation, which was good information and very detailed for the volunteers. But the next step is what would that look like on the ground in time to come, and we explained that would be probably quite a time, just given the other pressures that we're under. And finally, you would have seen Mayor sent through a quick a pro forma for Anzac Day. We had our first external agency meeting yesterday. We've had plenty of internal officers and myself trying to work out where we're heading with it, and it is a bit of a moving feast. The details change day to day depending on what the health officer recommendations were, but yesterday was our first meeting that we had the external agencies. So all your Vietnam vets and the NASHOs and SES and police and everyone coming together, everyone was very positive about it, even though it's rushed. Just the nature of it is we're about 7 or 8 weeks behind schedule, just because that's when we got advised. It was shaping up to be just the light your dawn, the end of the driveway ceremony for a long time, and then all of a sudden it opened up. But every change and it's still changing a little bit, but every change is getting a bit more and more relaxed. So at one stage we were looking at having to put a ring fence around the cenotaph to control the numbers there and do the contact tracing and all that. At this stage, knock on wood, that's off the table now, so it's come, be sensible. We encourage people to social distance. We certainly want to have some mechanism, whether you scan with your phone and through Advanced Rockhampton, there's some new app that they're trying to make the standard so that people can self-regulate that and self-nominate for their contact details. So all those changes mean that it's going to be as close as we can to be normal. We're not having the civic reception. I think it's been reported before. That's the one thing that we thought we could drop, just given the time. We just don't have the staff resources to do everything. So, and yesterday everyone was happy with that too. And Mayor's happy with it. So far so good. If you turn up at the dais, I think Mayor Tony sent an invite out. Don't go to East Street because we won't be there. It's in Key Street. It's just a bit wider to get people in. And it's at Denham and Keys where the dais is going to be if you're normally there. And I think the Navy, Commodore Eric, I think, takes the salute this year. They rotate that around. So far so good is the report. So,
can I just ask one question, Councillor Wickerson? The light up the dawn, is that still going to be encouraged or?
Yeah, absolutely, Mr Chair. That's council don't do any organisation around that other than to promote that. Yes, that's certainly an option. One slight change that we're looking at doing is to live broadcast the audio from the dawn service at the cenotaph. Audio only because the lighting is difficult to video. that's all. But I suggested to Ashley yesterday that if it was possible and without too much extra demand on already stretched resources that we've got, could we not do a live broadcast with video from the parade? You know, set up a camera or something near the dais. He said, yes, the video is no problem at all. That's something we do all the time. But we'd look at maybe working with a radio station to do the announcing. So if the groups could send through which group and in which order, and they've got a marching list for that, that maybe a radio announcer could do the emceeing for that. So the people that can't make it or choose still not to go near a crowd can still enjoy the march past, which is good. So we're investigating that now. Yeah. And we're trying to split that between the two local radio stations.
Can't go any further with that.
Okay, I'll stop
have
chatting
to
there.
leave the room.
Yep. No. And that's all I had, Mr Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wickerson. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just with the beef event, I think when the actual official launch was last year and it was video conferenced, but I've always been invited to that. I thought we always got an invitation. But when I didn't get one this year, I assumed it was because of the fact that we're sponsoring them and conflict of interest, etc. I'm not sure how those sort of things are going to play out because there is quite a lot of things we might get invited to over beef. And, yeah.
Councillors, I'm actually I've got Ross working on a policy to assist council work their way through the conflicts of interest for sponsorship in events. So not so much our internal events that we put on, like Rocky Nats or whatever else, or River Festival, they're quite easily to deal with. But when council give quite a considerable amount of money to an organisation to put an event on, then you receive tickets back. We're working our way through a policy that can give council, give us some guidance of how to do it, because I end up with staff potentially getting a conflict of interest if they're the decision maker to give money to something or other. So I'm trying to get some separation there. It's quite a complex one to do. I've got to get some decisions made particularly around the beef side of it for yourselves. But I just want to make sure it's right so that when we go to implement it, it's as best we're going to get it. So, and again, it's a very grey world that we're walking into, because there's no precedence and no other rules out there. So we're trying to navigate the perception, which is always a hard one. So we just got to be very mindful that when you accept something, and there's different rules for different levels of politicians, as you know. Some of the rules around ministerial gifts is that hospitality isn't a gift. It's got no tangible value after it's been consumed. It's gone. So, but however, that's a different view for local government, councillors and employees. So we're navigating our way through that. Ross will have something hopefully over the next week or so to work through council, because we do have a number of tickets to give out for, tickets to administer for sponsorship at beef. So I've got a lot of working events for staff to attend to, so they are legitimately working. But then there's some of the things like the ball, how we deal with that type of stuff. I just find it very difficult within my own self. So,
Well, probably just on that, like this is probably the first time councillors have always been actively working during Beef Week at different parts, whether it's our own displays and that, and this is probably the first time we actually haven't even got our roster or what we would be, we're there to do. So Rockhampton Regional Council usually has a display, and we've made quite an effort over the last decade of to the public that if your product's that good that your board of directors will go on the showroom floor, it's pretty good. And I think that's been one of our strengths, but we still have got to find that bit of information too. Yep. Okay, yes. So I'm happy to do that. No further general business. Councillors, more than happy to declare the meeting closed at 11:47. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Everybody join the front line. Ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine. Everybody feeling fine. Everybody join